Hi everyone, it's Jules here. I'm just going to wait for anyone else that wants to join us. So I'll give it another minute and then I'll get started and they can just join us as we go. So I hope you've had a good day, and maybe while you're waiting, if you want to just put something in the chat and just let us know who you are or say hi or something. And no, just say hi, and then I've got a question for you as we go through the webinar. All right, okay, I'm going to get started. So welcome to our free webinar where I'm going to tell you how to turn your $1,000 marketing budget into a lifetime of free PR. So the first thing before we get started is if you'd like to turn off your mobile, switch off your email. It's going to take probably about an hour, just over an hour to go through it. Grab your pen and a notepad in case you want to make any notes, and sit back and enjoy. And the other thing that we've learned with this is don't have anything else going through your broadband, because otherwise it just slows it right down for you. Right, okay, I'm going to get started. Let me get onto my PowerPoint presentation. Right, so today's topic is how to turn your $1,000 marketing budget into a lifetime of free PR. And I guess when we say that, what we're trying to get across is that once you learn the skills for how to do your own PR, it's a bit like riding a bicycle. Once you know how to do it, you'll be able to do it time and time again. So instead of spending $1,000 and buying an ad or a couple of ads, you'll be able to do publicity every month for the rest of your business's life if you want to. By learning the skill, you can do it time and time again every month of the year, and you will also build relationships with the media by going back to them time and again, and they might start to contact you, which actually does happen. Once they know what you're an expert in or what you can comment on, they'll come back to you and they'll ask for your comments for other things that they might have on. So first, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about me. I have been a PR professional since 2003, which is when I set up Handle Communications, which is my full service agency. I've now just this year, like in the last month or so, got out of my agency so I can focus just on Handle Your Own PR. But I was the founder of Handle Your Own PR, and we started it in 2009. So it's been around for a while. It's only now I'm getting serious about it. So just wanted to check that you're in the right place if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, if you're a retailer who has new products coming in every season, or you're a service provider, or perhaps you have a new product or service that you just want to launch, or you might be just interested in learning about PR and how it all works. So the first thing is, can you say hi to me in the group chat window? Just tell me a little bit about yourself, your company name, what industry you're in, where you're based, because I'm always interested where people are listening from. And if you know who your customers are, then tell me your target market too. Now, I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to refer back to that at the end of it. So chat away. Karina's there and she's keeping an eye on it, and she'll respond to you if you have any questions. But otherwise, I'll be able to answer any PR questions at the end. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I'm based in Melbourne. Which I love. I did spend 5 years living in London, and in fact I love this photo because just in the top left, on the top floor above that number 94 bus, was my office. I was selling ads for a little magazine called This Is London back in those days, before that was just early days in London. And then I moved to Sydney around the time of the year 2000 in order to be there for the fireworks and everything in the year 2000, and also for the Olympics. So I worked through that at an agency in Sydney, and then I moved back down to Melbourne because in the end I love it. And I've got my kid, and then I had my kids, and yeah, and I've been here ever since. I've been, like I said, a PR professional since 2003, and I have worked one-on-one with loads of clients in that time, almost all small businesses. I've done a few big businesses, but I guess my passion and where my interest really lies is helping small businesses. I really love what I do, and I love it when my clients get their stories published in the media. and that's what I'm here to help you do. And I guess one of the reasons why I love PR, having worked across almost all the disciplines in marketing, is the huge impact PR can make for its business and its potential to grow, and that really there is no cost except your time. But we're going to go through that again in a minute. One of the things that I've noticed over the years that has stopped people from using PR, and this is from my own experience as well, is that it can be expensive. A PR agency will cost you anywhere between $2,500 and $4,000 a month, and we all know that can be a bit expensive if you're a small business. But it's not only big companies that can afford PR agencies, and I guess it appears that way, but actually you can do it yourself and save yourself all that money. So we've got a quick poll for you. Have you ever had any publicity for your business or product already? And if your answer is no, what has been the biggest reason why? And if your answer is yes, how did it happen? I guess I'm particularly interested to know if it fell into your lap and so journalists contacted you, or if you actually had to go out and search for a story yourself. But I'm going to keep going while you're doing that poll and keep telling you a little bit about me and about the business. So in 2013, we at Handle Your Own PR had a bit of a vision. In fact, we probably had more of a light bulb moment, which was that Handle Your Own PR should become more active in the area of PR education. Although we'd started Handle Your Own PR in 2009, it took us a while to realise we had more to offer than just the media contact lists and media release writing and some of the other tools that we had. So yeah, so we set up Handle Your Own PR to teach businesses how to do their own PR. And we're continually improving because our vision is to help small businesses get as much publicity as possible. So hopefully you've seen our website by now, but that's just a little picture of the website to give you a feeling for it. The core of our business, though, has never, ever changed from the beginning, which was always to be a global leader in do-it-yourself PR for small to medium-sized businesses. And that includes startups, and that even includes teaching some people who don't have a business yet, but are just about to launch one. However, still on the website, we sell media contact lists and we do one-on-one coaching. And this is a couple of screen grabs from the site. The horizontal lines are actually different media categories for our media contact lists. And inside each of those, there's a whole lot of individual lists. And I do one-on-one coaching, so $250 for an hour of my time, and I can just talk about you and your business. And I also do a 3-hour one if you want a bit of help with the whole campaign. And there's another one for $2,500 that I'll take you right the way through it from start to finish. But today it is all about just teaching you the top level stuff so that you get a feeling for how it all works. I still teach entrepreneurs and business groups. I go around and do talks at networking events, both here and normally in Sydney. And I love it when my clients succeed. And I particularly love this picture because I love champagne as well. So cheers, everyone. We need to get a photo of us with in Melbourne rather than Sydney. But anyway, there you go. So cheers. So what are we going to cover off today? Well, today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what PR is. Then we're going to go into some insights into the media to tell you the difference between some of them and how they work and what sort of media are good for different types of stories. Then we'll run through the steps that you're going to need to take if you want to run your own campaign, and then there'll be time for a Q&A at the end. And after that, I've got a special offer for our boot camp if you are sufficiently into it that you think that it's something that you really want to do and you want a bit more help with it. So I love this little video. Oh, sorry, my little notes have all gone a bit crazy. I love this video because I think it's a perfect example of the difference between advertising and PR. And I use this a lot in my talks. But basically, advertising is kind of like saying, aren't I great? Or we are a great company, or isn't my product fantastic? But you're kind of having to shout out about it yourself. The difference with PR is that if you can get a story into a magazine or a newspaper, then that magazine or newspaper or TV show is telling all its readers what a great company you are, which I know it's a subtle difference, but it's a big difference when it comes to the perceived integrity of the business. So there's a whole lot of other reasons why PR is better than advertising as well. And the reality is that if you're going to advertise, you really need to do a lot of it. You need to have a lot of repetition, so it can become very expensive. And here's an example. This is just to give you a taste for what it would cost if you were advertising. The Fin Review has casual rates for a 10x2, which is about the packet size of a packet of cigarettes or slightly smaller, for $2,200. The Age starts at $13,600 for a quarter-page strip, which is just that strip along the bottom. The Woman's Weekly is $20,000 near as damn it for a third of a page ad. Of course, the Woman's Weekly does go out to a huge number of people. And then Mother and Baby magazine, if you're in parenting, starts at $3,500 for a third of a page. So all of those, you can see that that is a hell of a lot of money if you're a small business. But you might be able to get that half-page or quarter-page story in yourself if you've got the angle right, and I'm going to help you with that today. So I guess my question to you is, what is your definition of PR? I'm really interested to know what you think PR is. Then I'm going to tell you what I think PR is. Okay, so PR is also known as publicity, which is something that I just want to point out because a few people have said to me, what's the difference between publicity and PR? And they're basically exactly the same thing, just a different word. PR stands for public relations. PR basically means that you offer a story or a story idea to a journalist as content for them to publish. It's essentially free. You don't pay for it. You don't have to put your hand in your pocket. If you can come up with a good story, the journalist will run it for you for free anyway. But you can't always control when it will appear. So if you've set aside a small budget for advertising, why not think about PR instead? You get a whole lot more bang for your buck, lots of credibility, great SEO, which I'll talk about later, and it's something that you can promote again and again. For instance, if you buy an ad or two, what do you do when the money runs out? If you learn how to run your own PR campaign, though, you can repeat the exercise time and time again, as I said earlier, and build up that relationship with the media. And the other thing, of course, is if you've got an ad, once it's run, what do you do with it? You know, unless you want to sort of put your ad out on social media, which is kind of, you know, a bit, I guess, not done. It's no good to you. Whereas if you get a story in the media, you can put it out on social media and in newsletters and websites, and looks really impressive for you and for your business. So the next thing is, why would you use PR? Well, the most important thing to me is that people buy magazines and newspapers for the stories, not for the ads. And I mean, none of us ever buy anything for the ads. Same with TV and radio. So you want to be a story. You want to be the bit that people are going to really pay attention to and not get up and make a cup of tea or skip the page. Editorial is much, much more believable than advertising. Your business is being endorsed by someone, as I said, so it's like somebody else saying that you're great rather than having to say you're great yourself. And of course, the big, beautiful thing about PR is you don't have to pay for it, which is a huge bonus when you haven't got a lot of money. So I thought I'd just give you a couple of little case studies. This is the first one. This is a business called Aphrodite that I absolutely loved. It was two suburban women who decided to set up a service for other women who might like a male escort for a business occasion or a party or a social event or more, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So it's a female escort service. And of course, it was all a bit delicate, really. They had no money by the time they opened their doors. So they wanted to try some DIY PR to create awareness, but they also didn't want their names anywhere because they were mums out in the burbs. And they were a bit worried that people would read it and think badly of them or their kids. So it was a bit of a curly one, excuse me, but we wrote the media release for them, and the angle we suggested they use was two Melbourne mums take on the sex industry. And even though it was a hard story to sell, and they bought a couple of media lists from us, the Women's Media List and the Victorian Metro Media Lists. And many of the outlets rejected them. In fact, heaps and heaps of them rejected them. And they were great because they persevered, because that is one of the things about PR. And then they approached Grazia magazine, which unfortunately has closed down now. But Grazia is a glossy, gorgeous women's magazine that was around for a few years. And they managed to get a 3-page story in it, and I love the subheading, while others are starting cupcake businesses or parenting blogs, two Melbourne mums are running a very different kind of company, an escort service for neighbourhood women. So they were absolutely wrapped, and that ad, if they had to buy that space as advertising instead of a story, that would have cost them over $18,000. So, and I mean, you only need to look at it to think, yep, that's a story I'd read. And if I was interested in male escort services, then I would probably look up that company. So now I want to run you through some of the skills that you're going to need for DIY PR. There are two main skills. One is that you need to be able to be reasonably good at writing. And when I say that, I mean that you need to have good grammar and spelling. Journalists are on their computers writing all day, every day. So there is nothing that annoys them more than somebody that doesn't know how to write properly. So make sure that you know how to use good grammar and spell, or otherwise pay someone else to write it for you. We have a service on Handle Your Own PR where we can write your media release for you, or we can tweak it if you want to write it yourself, and I'll just make sure that it looks right and massage it. But you don't have to use us. There are loads of companies online as well. But if you're not good at writing, then don't attempt to do it yourself. I'd say get somebody else to do it. The other thing that you need is to have a good phone manner. Journalists may want to ask you further questions over the phone, or even do a formal interview over the phone. So you've got to be reasonably confident that you're happy to talk over the phone. And if you don't want to talk or you feel too nervous, then find somebody who will do it for you before you start your campaign, because you'll need to put that person forward as being the spokesperson for your business. But I would also say don't be scared. Really, journalists are very approachable, and unless you're approaching them with something very controversial, they'll pretty much write whatever it is that you want them to write. And in fact, we've got a great ebook on our website, How to Do a Killer Media Interview, that's been written by a journalist that tells you all the things that you need to do. Now I'm going to give you another case study. This is for a gorgeous woman who is a huge fan of Handle Your Own PR, and actually came back to me this week because she's going to do another campaign because she got such a good response the last time. So she had a startup website where people can sell their wedding clothes and other items after the big day. And it was created for people considering DIY weddings, or maybe people who don't want to spend the average of $36,000 or whatever it is for a wedding, especially when most people only wear their dresses and their bridesmaid dresses for the day. So she'd never done PR before, but she was very clear that she wanted to get on TV. And she bought the women's media list and the TV producers list, which contains, our TV list contains contacts for most of the morning shows and all of the lifestyle kind of shows. So, oh dear, sorry, I've just realised that's coming up. She managed to get a segment on mornings on Channel 9, which she was absolutely rapt about, and then got heaps of interest from The Studio, Weekend Today, and The Project. I don't know that any of the others went ahead, but she's about to approach them again. And I can't remember why, but there was something really big in the news at the time that she couldn't get that cut through. So that's obviously something you need to be aware of with PR, that if there is something else like a bushfire, or might have been, I think she said maybe it was the Paris thing last year, but either way, anyway, if something like that happens, just back off and wait until things have settled a little bit. So enough about me and enough about our customers. Let's get on to the nitty-gritty, and let's talk about the different media types that there are first. So there are lots of different media types, but I thought I'd just run through with you the differences between them. So TV, as we all know, is a bit of the holy grail. It's not necessarily hard to get onto, so I can teach you how to do that, but you do need to have a visual angle or a person that's prepared to be interviewed. Or I guess, you know, if you've got a product, you can get it on as well. But it's, you know, it's a very visual medium, obviously. So you need something that's going to look good on TV. Radio is perfect if you have someone to be interviewed. Radio reacts very quickly, so it's easy to get sort of quick coverage. But you do need to have someone, obviously, to be interviewed. Magazines are perfect for products, or if you want to offer some advice to their readers. But we've all seen in the glossy magazines that they do lots of nice product things and feature articles. Newspapers, the difference with newspapers is that there needs to be a newsworthy angle, as in something that you would imagine reading in the newspapers. So they're not really going to do a lot about la la la, this is my business. It needs to have a bit more depth to it. And they will also probably require a local angle. And when I say local, I'm not meaning local like your local newspaper. I mean, if you want to go to The Age, you need to, or The Age or the Herald Sun, you need to really be based in Victoria, or that's going to be the easy hit. In Queensland, the Courier Mail or the Brisbane Times, you know, the Northern Territory, the Territorian, the West Australian in Perth, etc., etc. Bloggers are the next one, and I've put them in because they really are very much a new type of media these days. Having said that, you really want to target the ones with large followings, and some of them have got, you know, tens of thousands of people following them. And other than that, you just treat them like journalists. You send them a media release, and you send them an email, and off you go. And last but definitely not least is email newsletters and industry media. Now, email newsletters are often attached to a media outlet. So, for instance, KidSpot, which is a big parenting website, also has a newsletter that goes out every week, and they need content for that newsletter. And that's the same for a lot of big websites. And offering them content for their newsletter can be very attractive to them, especially with some of them, it's you know, someone in the office that's got to put it together. So they're really scrabbling for content. And the other one is industry media. And when I say that, I just mean if you're targeting, say, childcare centres, then you might like to go to the childcare magazine that goes out to all the childcare workers. And the same with teachers. If you want to go to the banking industry, they've got their own industry magazines and newsletters. Same with accountants, same with franchisees, etc., etc. So, and those, even though they may not have as big a following, have got highly targeted followings. So they're definitely not to be discounted. And depending on what you're trying to do, they can even be the main target for your campaign. So now I want to cover off media lead times, because I think this is a really important thing that you need to learn, especially if you're trying to plan ahead for when you're going to get coverage. So blogs and websites and anything on social media, it's almost immediate. If you approach them today, you may get a story today or tomorrow. Whereas a daily newspaper tends to work up to a week ahead. Often if you pitch a story to them today, it will run tomorrow. But if it was, say, the weekend newspapers, they would be working, you know, during the week for something on the next weekend, or they're probably working a couple of weekends ahead in the magazines. Then you've got the weekly newspapers, which includes local papers, and they tend to work a couple of weeks ahead. I know my local newspaper comes out on a Thursday, and the editorial deadline is, I think, the Monday, and then it goes to print. So if you have a story that you're only thinking a couple of days beforehand, you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks. Even if you pitch it to the journalist and they love it and they say they'll put it in the next issue, it's probably 2 weeks away. Radio, like I said before, can be really quick. I mean, I've even pitched things in the afternoon of, say, a Monday and had a call at like 5 o'clock on Tuesday morning because I pitched to the breakfast show and someone had dropped out. So that can be really, really quick, can be later that day or in the next couple of days. Weekly magazines tend to work, say, 3 to 6 weeks ahead. So something like New Idea and Woman's Day, if you were to pitch it to them today, beginning of February, you probably wouldn't get in until about mid-March, unless you're angling for a particular feature for Valentine's or whatever, although chances are that's already been well and truly closed. The monthly magazines tend to work 2, 3, 4 months ahead. So if it's February now, they're probably working on the April issue, I would think, around now. And then the bi-monthly and quarterly magazines work even further ahead. So the reason why I'm telling you this is if you are going to pitch a story to someone now and the journalist says, I absolutely love it, I'm putting it in the next issue, you need to be aware that with some of them there's quite a lag, you know, a difference between what they're working on now and when it's going to actually appear in print. So my poll question for you now is, what media do you want to target? Are you looking for TV or radio or print? And if you're going for those, have you got a specific show or a specific magazine or newspaper that you want to target? Just stick it in the chat box, or no, it's not the chat box, it's on the poll. I'm just interested to know what your answer is. Okay, so now I am going to take you through the steps that are required. So this is the nitty-gritty, really. The steps that are required to run your own PR campaign. So there's three sort of main steps. One is that you need to get ready, and I'm going to take you through what you need to get ready first. Then you do it, which is actually sending it all out and following up. And then there's a post-PR process where you can really work it. And I'll also talk to you a little bit about the SEO. So first, what do you need to get started? Well, the first thing that you need is a company logo or a product logo, but it's basically your letterhead, and the journalist, so you're going to insert it in the top of your media release, and the journalist will look to that to find out what the media release is about. So I have to tell you that I learned this the hard way. When I first started doing PR, I used to put the company logo up the top, and then one day we pitched something to the West Australian, and the journalist actually put our details instead of our clients. And the next thing you know, the phone rang off the hook for the next week. We probably got 200 phone calls. So one thing that's good is that the West Australian really works. The other thing was I've learned to put your whoever is writing the media release, or that the media release is about, is what needs to go on the letterhead. Then you need some sample products or trials ready to go, which means, and I will go into a bit more detail with that, but basically you need to set aside, if you're doing PR for a product, you need to set some aside for the journalists so that you can send it to them so they can touch and feel it. And if you have an online business, then the journalist will want to get onto the site to have a look what it is and maybe try it if that's sort of relevant. You'll also have to make sure you include your details for where to purchase. And I know that sounds silly, but so many people forget. So a website address at the bottom is probably the best thing. And then if you have got retailers, you can list your stockists on your website. But if it's just one product and you're selling it through one chain of retail stores or in one separate place, then you can just use that. Then you can just say the name of the store. You need to make sure that your website is live and ready for scrutiny by the time the article comes out. It's all right to have a beta testing website, so you know, the sort of soft launch for a journalist to look at, because they'll definitely want to see it. But by the time the article is published or you've gone live on air, all their readers and viewers will want to go onto your website. So you really need to make sure that it's ready to go before you get started. Then, of course, you need to set aside some time. And I normally think that you need about a day to get started to write your media list and start sending it out. And then between 1 and 3 hours a week to do some follow-up. And last but definitely not least, you need to be prepared to put in the effort, and you need to be motivated to do it, which I guess is one of the hardest things. And that's we're going to talk about the boot camp at the end, but that's one of the great takeaways from the boot camp, is that you do it with a whole lot of other people, and so the motivation is a bit easier. So next I'm going to talk about photography, and as I've got here, good photography can be key to your campaign. It actually can be the make or break for some stories. So you need to be able to show people, including the journalist, what the product looks like, and ideally a picture of it being used in some way. So if it's a vase, it could be just sitting in a lounge room, or if it's a poster, it can be up on the wall in a bedroom. I'll take you through the photography in a minute, and you'll see my own shot for my own product being used. But that's called a lifestyle shot where it's being used. You really shouldn't skimp on your photography. It is worth paying somebody to do it for you. You will be able to use it time and again for your advertising and your website and everything else, but a really good shot will definitely be very attractive to a magazine. And if you don't have a product or anything that you can shoot, you might want to take pics of the founders of the business, because that's still very useful for a news or business story. It can actually completely make the difference as to whether they run a story or not. And I'll give you a little anecdote. When we launched Handle Your Own PR, we had some good photos taken, and we sent it out to all the business media, because obviously we wanted to get into we wanted all the small businesses to know about us. And the Age and Sydney Morning Herald ran quite a big story for us, because the Age and Sydney Morning Herald are owned by the same company. So they tend to often run the same story in both, which is what they did for us. And we got about a third of a page with a nice big picture of us, which we were absolutely thrilled about. And then about a week later, we ended up getting a half-page story with like an A4 sized photo of us, which was a little confronting, but very nice. And I ended up ringing the journalist to go, what happened? Like, how come you ran the story twice? And they said, well, there was a weekend editor who came in, the editor that came in on the weekend hadn't necessarily known that the story had run during the week. And he was running around apparently everyone's desk saying, I need a story with a photo, I need a story with a photo, and spied the photo of me and my business partner and said, right, well, I'm going to put those two women on. So we got a double dip purely because we had that photo. So I can't emphasize how much a good photography is worth it. It's absolutely crucial. I wouldn't even bother doing PR unless you've got good photography, if you've got a product or you're in fashion. And as I said, use a professional. It's always worth it in the long run. So these are the 3 types of images that you need to get together. Sorry, I'm just going to have a little drink. You need to get together if you've got a product. And they are, the first one is what they call a product shot, which is often the product in its packaging. So it's how, if someone was walking into a store, how they might see it when it's actually in its packaging still. Then you need a deep etched shot, which is the product kind of cut out from its background. Now that can be in the packaging. That's one way of doing it, or without the packaging, but it's somebody actually cuts around the image so that it can just sit on its own on a white background. And you've probably seen those shots in the sort of what's cool and what's hot kind of pages that they have in newspapers and some magazines. And then the last shot, as I mentioned earlier, is a lifestyle shot. So it's the product actually being used. And this is one of my products. This is a product we put out on the market that sticks a baby's bowl to a high chair so that it can't get flipped across the room. And we got this great shot, which I think, you know, with a glass bowl really demonstrates very well that it's totally safe. So you want to keep that kind of thing in mind as well. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about samples. As I said earlier, make sure you allocate some samples to send out to the media after your initial approach, and only if they show interest. So in the, don't want to say olden days, but it used to be that you would put together a package that you would then mail to journalists, and you would put a sample of your product in the media release and a whole lot of stuff together. Some people do like a whole basket, and send it out to a whole lot of journalists that you want to target. However, I think with small businesses, that is a complete waste of money. And I've also had journalists say to me, please do not send me things that I haven't requested already. So my tip to you is that I write the media release, I put a great big photo in there, a beautifully shot photo in the media release, send it out to the journalists and offer to send them a sample if they're interested. And then the ones that want a sample are the ones that you're pretty certain that they're going to run a story for you. So it makes it worthwhile sending them the sample rather than just sending them out willy-nilly. One thing you need to realise is that if you send out samples, unless they're of a very high value, don't expect to get it back. Most journalists expect to be sent a sample that they can then try and use at home. However, if you do want it back, so obviously some things are very expensive, or you might not have very many, or you've got the first batch of the order and you need them to sell them. If you do want it back, make it easy for the journalist to get it back to you. So I would suggest you send the sample out with a stamped addressed envelope, or a prepaid filled out express post bag, or even a courier docket that's already been filled out with the phone number and the address to return it to. So just make it super easy. If a journalist is doing a photo shoot and they might have maybe 50 products there, so it's very hard for them to remember what product has come from where, especially when they've been taken out of their packaging and put down on a page or laid out in some kind of a photo. So make it easy for them. And if it is a really high cost item, and for instance, I have done PR for prams and strollers before that have cost $1,500 plus, consider having a sample, just one, that you could send out to a number of journalists to road test it or to trial it. So we've done that before with strollers and prams, where you send it out to the journalist, you give them a pre-filled out docket for them to send it back or to send it on to the next media outlet, and you let them have it for say 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it might be, and then they're happy to send it on to the next person. But do let them know that you need them to keep it nice. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to need to have, and I think you probably all know this already, is a great media release. And a media release needs to be well constructed and attention grabbing, because otherwise it's not going to get the journalist's interest. So ideally you need one A4 page of text and images. You need to clearly communicate your key messages Right at the front, like in the first paragraph, you want to tell people exactly what it is the product is and what it does. And you need to write it in a tone of voice that is appropriate for the end reader or watcher or listener. So you really need to make sure that it's in a conversational tone and it's not too jargony, but I'll talk about that a bit later as well. And then when you're writing your media release, you always put a low resolution photograph into it, which means it's smaller than a 1 megabyte JPEG. Anything bigger than that is going to start filling up the journalist's inbox and they won't like it. They'll just delete it. So you want a low res photograph in your release, but definitely put a photograph in. I think it makes a huge difference. And make sure that you cover the following points in every media release that you do. You need to say what it is that you're selling. You need to say why you're selling it or what problem it solves. And that works whether it's a product or a service business, whatever. Why are you doing it and what problem does it solve? Where is it available and how much does it cost? All those points need to be on every media release, otherwise the journalist is just going to be on your tail asking for answers to the right questions. What not to include in a media release, and I think this is just as important, is never put an ad in a media release. Journalists see themselves as being very, very different from advertising departments. And if you show them an ad that you've done before, they will just flick it straight over to the advertising department and you've lost your chance. So never show them any ads and never show them any clippings from other media. Now, I'm going to talk about clippings later, but basically that means if anyone else has covered you in the media, don't tell the journalist that you're pitching to, because they'll just go, oh, well, it's already been covered. It's not new. I don't need to do it. It's already been done. So if you have had other coverage, and I don't care whether it's beautifully explained and you couldn't have explained it better yourself, you're going to have to, because you can't send them a clipping from another media or otherwise the story's too old and they won't do it. Don't bother including in the body copy, this is, any logos, trademarks, copyright symbols. I mean, if you think about it, have you ever read a magazine or a newspaper that's got the little R or the little C on it? Just doesn't happen, or the little TM. So don't bother putting them in. I wouldn't bother really with customer testimonials unless they're from someone with a really high profile, because I think most of us know that you can get almost anyone to write a testimonial for you. So whether it's a genuine one or not, the journalist is probably not going to take the risk. So unless it's someone with a really high profile in your industry or someone that's particularly relevant, I wouldn't bother putting in any testimonials. However, a quote from someone is a different thing, and we will talk about that as well. And don't bother using any jargon or slang. Use a conversational tone. And what I say to people is, imagine you're explaining it to your best friend or to your mum, somebody that may not know about your industry jargon. You want to keep it that simple, because the more simple you make it, the more likely the journalist will understand it and the more likely they will run the story for, for their readers. So those are the important points about a media release. Now we're going to get to crunch time, which is really make or break. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but the angle that you choose, the story angle, is really, really important if you're trying to pitch a story. So I'm just going to cover a couple of them here. On my website, under, I think it's step 1 or step 2, that we've got how to write a media release. And in there, I've got a link with a whole lot more suggestions for you. And online, you can find them as well. But I'm just going to run through a few of them so you can kind of get the gist of it. So if your product is new, then you're already in with a pretty good chance, because journalists are always looking for the next new thing. Whether it's a product or a business, new is almost enough. Is it topical? Can you relate it to a popular TV show or a news story? I just saw someone post a story today about things that we can learn from Molly Meldrum, with that Molly Meldrum special that's coming on TV over the next, I don't know when it is, last night or tomorrow night or sometime soon. But yeah, could you relate it to MasterChef? Can you relate it to, I don't know, something else that's going on in the news at the moment? So do have a think about that. Be careful with celebrities, but celebrities, so firstly I should say celebrities can be very powerful if you've got a celebrity angle, but you need to be careful and make sure that you get the permission from the celebrity before you use their name. I have handed things out to celebrities lots of times before. In fact, we've had prams that went to Kate Blanchett and Toni Collette and a whole lot of people. And then we got a lovely thank you note from Toni Collette saying thank you so much. but the client still couldn't, you still can't say as used by Toni Collette unless you ask her permission. And another example of that is that I did some work with Lauren Newton a few years ago when she had her first baby, and we gave her a pram and we gave her, you know, loads of clothing and I don't know, loads and loads of stuff for her new baby. And then we managed to, and she was sort of an ambassador for the brand. And then we managed to land an interview for her in Women's Day, and she wasn't prepared to do it unless we paid her another 5,000. So just to give you an idea that these guys are, you know, celebrities are used to being paid a lot of money for their image, and they're probably not going to give it for nothing. Although every once in a while they'll find a product they love and they're more than happy for you to use their name, but ask first. Have you got an interesting backstory? And that just means, is there a story as to how you set up this business or found this product? Did you change careers? Did you have a life-changing moment that you got sick or something happened or you had your baby or whatever it might be that suddenly made you set up this business? Is there an unusual link? Are you a bald person running a hairdressing salon? Are you a Japanese person running an Indian restaurant? Or maybe you're a short person who's got a clothing store for tall people. But if there's some funny little unusual link, then it's definitely worth putting in. It makes it stand out. The other one is, you know, innovation. So if it's a world first or an Australian first, or it's quirky or clever, that will immediately capture the journalist's interest as well. Sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. And then last, but definitely top of my list, is offering tips and advice. So that can position you as an expert, and it's a great way to get exposure. So if you can't think of a story angle, think about something that you can offer that people some insights into what it is that you do. For instance, we've had, I'll just give you a couple of examples, a guy who owned a bedding store and sold beds. And we suggested to him that he put together 10 tips for the best beds to look for the different positions that you sleep in. And that went down really well. And another one that we did was for a picture framer who lives in Melbourne, just a local guy. But we got him to give us 10 tips for hanging pictures in your home. And we gave the title of it, which I can't take credit for, was my business partner, Simone. But she put it out with the heading, "Are You Well Hung?" And I can't tell you how many people opened it up. He got so much coverage for that, just because it was so funny. I mean, it's just really funny for them to have that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you actually do it. So you've got your media release, you've got your samples ready, you've got your photography done. Let's talk about the next step, which is finding the media contacts. So I'm going to go through two ways. You can either create your own list or you can buy one. So to create your own list, you need to research recent articles or stories in the media that you're targeting, and then note the name of the journalist and their contact details if you can. Often their name will be there. That's called a byline. But often in the front of a magazine, they'll also have a phone number for the magazine or a web address or something like that. You need to ring the media outlet if you can't find it on Google. And I would have to say that most receptionists at newspapers and TV, radio, all of them, they're more than happy to put you through to someone. And you can just say to them, "Can I speak to the lifestyle editor or the fashion editor or the business editor?" And they'll put you through. You want to track down the name, email address, and phone number for each magazine or each media outlet and or each journalist on your list. And all of those are very, very possible. And the only cost really is your time. But then it just depends how much you value your time. Because the other option is that you can buy a media list from Handle Your Own PR. Sorry, I can't resist plugging it a little bit. All our media lists are up to date, and by buying a quality up-to-date media list, it ensures that your media release will reach interested journalists. So we actually send out an email to our journalists every 3 months or so to say to them, have the details we've got correct? Are the details correct? But also, are you happy to be contacted by non-professionals? The ones that say no, they're not, don't make it onto our list. So everyone that's on our list has expressed that they're happy to be contacted by a non-professional. And the way that we persuade them is we tell them that they will quite possibly hear about a business or a product before anyone else. Because if you haven't got the money to pay an agency, then you're going to do it yourself. And this is their best bet to get the story early. Also, we have personalized email addresses for the majority of the media outlets. So that's Mary at or John at, News Limited or whatever. It's not editor at or info at. So they're real people. And of course, you'll save yourself hours and hours of time and loads of aggravation, which has not to be sniffed at. All of our media contact lists sell for under 350, I think, but 99% of them are under 250. It's just the business media list is pretty big, so that's 300, I think, and the TV producers is 350, because if you manage to get TV, you'll get an awful lot more value than any of the others in terms of cost. So, and of course, the absolute main thing about buying your own media list is that you can buy it now and you can start your campaign today, which is always useful. Okay, so now let's talk about the best way to contact the media. And each of them sort of prefer their own way. Well, there's kind of two different kinds. So magazine editors and web editors and bloggers, really you've got to email them first. Web editors and bloggers, you probably won't find a phone number anyway. Magazine editors prefer to, because they're just inundated and they're normally having to work work with an awful lot of stuff, so they prefer you to email first and then maybe phone them for follow-up, or phone them or talk to them over the phone if they call you. News editors and business, in fact I'd have to say also that some business editors always want to be called first. You have about 3 or 4 minutes to pitch them the story, and the first thing you always say is this a good time, because you want to make sure that you haven't got them on deadline. But if you haven't got them on deadline, then they'll have time to talk to you, and you just pitch the story to them. And then when they say, oh yes, that sounds really interesting, can you tell me more? You have the email ready to send them if they ask for it, and any research that you might have or whatever. And the same for radio and TV producers. They don't like to be emailed first. They like you to call them and pitch them the story first, and then they'll look out for your email. So that's just a little heads up. Okay, so what do you say in the email? What does the email do? Okay, so the first thing that you need with your email, which is going out with your media release, so this is the email I'm talking about, is to create a catchy subject line. Now, when I say that, if you're really stuck, then use the headline that you've used for your media release. But I have had a Handle Your Own PR person say to me before, should I just put pitch to Herald Sun or pitch to The Age or whatever? Absolutely not. I think any journalist will just ditch that without even opening it. So try to make it funny or clever. And like I said, the one that said, "Are you well hung?" was absolutely, went down a treat. And I did another campaign with another very small business who made bespoke jewelry. And she had created a 1-carat diamond ring, and it was set into a carrot. And we were pitching it around this time of year. So we went for an Easter one and just went, forget about chocolate this Easter. Think about carrots instead, and we got a really good response for that as well. So just think in terms of what's going to make a person open an email. Make sure that you send a personalized email to each person on your list. So that means, hi Mary, how are you? Rather than just hi, or even worse, not even addressing the person. Choose only one person per media outlet at a time, especially if you're offering an exclusive. Otherwise you'll get them all really cross and they won't run the story at all. If you do want to send it out to more than one person, and sometimes I do, because I don't know whether I want to send it to the fashion editor or the lifestyle editor, but what I'll do is I'll put both of their email addresses and then actually say in the email, hi Mary and Sandra, I wasn't sure which of you to send this to, so I'm sending it to you both. But be really obvious about it. What they hate is if you try and sort of sneak it off and make out that you're only sending it to them when actually you're sending it to a whole lot of people. We always copy and paste the body of the release into the body of the email. So I cut from literally where it says the heading with the photo right the way down to where it says ends and put it into the email. So it's just one less click for the journalist. I often attach it as well, but definitely into the body of the email. And then, of course, a low-res version of the image sits top and center of your email. So that's what they see when they first open it up. And again, only low-res images so you don't clog up their inbox. And in the intro, which is the email that goes with your media release, you want to write a short, snappy paragraph that explains the pitch and that you have some samples and a person to be interviewed. You might have some stats that you want to share with them as well, and that you've got high resolution images if they want them. And what they're looking for with high res is going to be 3 to 5 meg. And what they're looking for with low res is under 1 megabyte JPEGs. Okay, so once you've sent it all out, you've got to wait a couple of days. And I actually interviewed a journalist this afternoon who told me that she wants to be called the next day or the day after, but I would always say within a week. So that's sort of 5 to 7 business days. Otherwise, you just run the risk of being completely forgotten and you're going to have to pitch it like it's brand new again. So following up, which is the industry term for contacting the media who you've already sent your media release to, is one of the most crucial stages of the campaign. Remember that journalists and editors receive hundreds of emails every day. And I mean, I'm not joking. Some of them literally receive hundreds. The journalist I was speaking to today reckons she gets about 50. But that is an awful lot of mail for you to get some cut through in it. So therefore, journalists don't mind you following up. A lot of them will be really appreciative, saying, God, yes, I meant to get back to you, or I had that earmarked and then I forgot to get back to you. So don't ever feel apologetic about following up. They don't mind at all. Try to send the follow-up email, like I said, within a week. Make sure that you personalize it again. And what I tend to do is I take the original email that I sent that journalist and I forward it, and then I do the same thing with them. So I forward it and then I put, hi, just wondering if you received this. Was there any interest? Or something that's just short and snappy that says, I'm just checking to see whether you're interested in this and you might run it. If it's a media outlet that you really, really want and you've got your heart set on it, then I would say pick up the phone. Because even though journalists say they don't like to be called, hardly anyone does, call them these days. And so therefore, if you have a phone call, as long as the timing is good and you're not ringing them on deadline, they might be quite receptive to it. But email is the first port of call anyway. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about what you do after you've got your PR. And the first thing that I would say is remember to thank any journalist or editor who gives you a mention. Hardly anyone does this, and I ask journalists all the time how many people say thank you, and they say they hardly ever do, and they love it when they do. Of course, it gives you an opportunity to go back to the journalist. It might be that the article has actually made a big difference to your business. Maybe you've had a whole lot of interest, maybe you've sold a whole lot of product. Let the journalists know that, because they love to know that their words have had an impact. But another journalist I was speaking to said what they love is not so much the thank you, but it's the call afterwards to maybe see if there's another story there, see if there's some other way that they could put another spin on it, or to ask you some more in-depth questions. So I really recommend that you contact the journalist after they've run the story and thank them. And of course, the other thing is, remember that they don't have to run that story for you, and they've done you a favor. So it's always worthwhile to show your appreciation, and then you never know, they might do another story for you the next time because they'll remember you as the nice person that says thank you. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about clippings, which I mentioned briefly earlier. It's just an industry term, and it really comes from the olden days where people would get newspapers and cut it out and clip it out is what they called it. So it's an industry term for the copy of whatever coverage you receive. Always remember to ask for a copy of the interview or the article. So when the journalist says, yes, okay, I'm going to put it in the next issue, say, would you be able to send me a copy? And they'll probably say yes if you remind me. So I stick a little note in my diary or my calendar, and I make sure that I call them on the day that it comes out and ask them to send me a PDF of it. Sometimes with magazines, they'll post you the whole magazine. Radio producers are always very happy, I have found, as long as you ask them straight away. They're happy to send you a copy of any radio interviews that you do, which you can then use on your website or in social media. But always ask if you're allowed to use it for social media or for your website. Don't assume, because some media now these days have got quite fussy about it. Mainly, I guess, because there's so much stuff going online, and if they want an exclusive, they want to be the only one who's got that article. So don't assume, even if you've written it, that you get to keep it. If they've printed it, it's their IP, and you need to just ask their permission. Most of them will let you, but some of them are a bit funny about it, so just to be careful. And if they won't give you a copy, they will often allow you to feature a link to it, as it drives traffic to their website too. And that's particularly true of TV shows. So very rarely now will they send you any footage. Nowadays, they just say, here's the link, we've got it on our website, just direct people to go there. But the same with print articles. I mean, if it's appeared in print and they won't give you a copy, then just do a link to the actual article in your newsletter or whatever it is that you want to do, which leads me beautifully into the next topic, which is how to work your media coverage. So working it is making the most of it. So you've already got your article, it's appeared. What are you going to do with it? So you can make your media coverage work even harder for you by posting it on your website, certainly putting it through all your social media channels. I mean, it's just made for Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and Twitter. Put it on your blog if you have a blog. Put a link in your newsletter if you've got a newsletter. It might be that you work with a whole lot of people within an industry, or that you're a retailer or a wholesaler. Why not let it out to your business network and let them know that you're getting media coverage as well? And then last but not least, and this is particularly true of restaurants because we see it all the time, but why not put the article up on your shop window or on your office window, or frame it and put it in the office? I mean, I can't tell you how many waiting rooms I've sat in, I'm sure you're the same, for waiting for someone for a meeting, and you just start looking around at the walls and notice that they've got media coverage. So can be really, really good. Okay, now I've talked about this a little bit. So SEO, if you don't know, is search engine optimization, which means that it's just ways for Google to find you nice and quickly. And PR is fantastic for SEO. Google loves it because they love inbound links from reputable sites, and reputable sites to them are media outlets. So if you get mentioned in a media outlet and it has your web address in it, then Google will love you. And to that end, make sure that when you are interviewed by a journalist, or if you send out a media release, that you have your web address in it. Now, I was interviewed for the Herald Sun a month or two ago as a bit of a favour for the journalist who needed to pad it out. And it was all about happiness, and I was sort of like, oh, I don't really want to do it. I want to get coverage for my business. And she said, well, why don't you say your business makes you happy? And then we'll cover the business. And I thought that this is just an example of PR spin. So I said, yep, great. But one thing I said to her was, please don't mention handle your own PR as the words. Can you say that I come from www.handleyourownpr.com.au? And she said, sure. And the reason for that is that if I didn't have the web address, if it had only said handle your own PR as words, we wouldn't have got that SEO benefit. So you really want your web address to be mentioned in the article somewhere. And the more popular the media outlet, the better it works for you. For instance, daily Metro newspapers are ranked very highly by Google. And in fact, an article that Nina Hendy wrote for us, in fact, that article that was in the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age still comes up on like the second page, I think it is, of when you Google handle your own PR, it still comes up really, really high, even though it was back in 2009 or 2010. So they hang around, and it's worth it. It's really, really worth getting publicity for that reason. So the next thing I want to do is just give you a chance to answer some questions. So if you have any questions, I have to just move to a different bit. I'm just going to have a little look in the chat box, see if anyone has any questions. Hannah says, I want to target print, mum magazines and pregnancy. Thanks, Hannah. Your business is Effortless Eco, and it's a modern cloth nappy. You personally think it's the bee's knees after using other people's designs for almost 5 years and 2 children. Well done. So good on you for doing that. Have you got any questions that you particularly want me to answer? Or otherwise, I'm going to move on, tell you a little bit about our boot camp, because that might be, you know, something that really rings your bell, so to speak. So I guess we have recognised that even though we've got the website and we've got all this information to share with people, we still have a long way to go. And media lists and online tips have only solved part of the problem, because some people and some of you find it still too daunting to do it on your own. And I totally understand that and respect that. I could hold lectures, and as I mentioned earlier, I still do lots of talks, but there's limitations to them. I've only got an hour, as I have with this, so you can't go through a hell of a lot of detail in an hour. A lot of people feel really excited when I'm doing the talk, and then afterwards, you know, they forget to take action, or they're just demotivated and think it's too hard. There's no support group. You're doing it all on your own, so you've got no one to talk to about it. And of course, you know, holding talks is all well and good if you live nearby, but it's no good if you live interstate or somewhere else. So it can be geographically difficult. So we decided to set up an online version of a boot camp. So we've got a boot camp that's called How to Generate Free PR. And it consists of 6 90-minute weekly live webinar sessions with me. So we've been doing them on Monday nights, same as the time today, because people find that Monday makes it really handy for them to get on with their sort of business during the rest of the week and put together the media releases and stuff. I do really in-depth lessons that are incredibly practical on the key areas of running your campaign, and you have it because it's live. You've got the opportunity to ask questions, so it becomes really, really relevant to you and your business. And the value would normally be $2,250, but we're going to throw in a few more things and then give you an absolute red hot go sale price tonight. The bootcamp also gives you access to all the training materials, so you get to see the webinar and you can watch it as many times as you like. It's recorded and easily able to, and we'll send you the slides as well. And you also get access to the key ebooks that we have in our online store, such as the one I mentioned earlier about how to do a killer media interview. I've got lots and lots in there about, you know, getting ready and photography and all that sort of thing. In the boot camp, you get to practice and learn on your own business or product. So I guess I've tried to make the boot camp really relevant to you and your business. So it's a process that we go through over the 6 weeks, so that you start off not knowing how to do it at all. And then by week 4, I think it is, you're sending out to the media yourself. And then when you're doing the follow-up in week 5, you can tell us what responses you've got, and I can help you if you've got some that you don't know how to deal with it. And then at the very end, we do the follow-up as well. So it's all about you and your own business or product. I give you weekly exercises to do after each session that I like fondly to call homework. It's things like writing your biography, writing your media release, coming up with your media angle, working out your target markets, that kind of thing. And for today, our boot camp price is only $800 instead of, and we'll throw all of that in as well. But there's more. For the first person to sign up today, if you sign up to the boot camp today, I'm going to give you a personal one-on-one one-on-one session. It's a bit of a tongue twister. With me to discuss anything that you want to about your business and what you want the PR to do, what angles you might think would work for your business, or if you don't have any, I can help you with that, and what media might be good for you to target. So that hour with me normally costs $250, and we're going to throw it in for free for the first person to sign up tonight. And anybody else who signs up today can get it for 40% off. So I'll give you $100 off, so it only costs you $150. Now, as I said, tonight the boot camps was going to be $800, but we've got a special offer at the moment. We are going to start the boot camp in the next couple of weeks, I think. So today you can buy it for only $600, which is pretty good. So pretty much $100 per session, and you get all the homework, and you'll get an hour of my time, and you know, it's all working on your own business. So if you're interested, I think Karina will put up a link for you. If not, you can definitely link from the front page of our website where we've got register now. But anyway, you use the discount code BC for bootcamp 0216 for February 2016. That was just how I'd remember it. So it's BC0216 at the checkout. Plus, if you do it tonight, then I'm going to give you a free media contact list of your choice So even if you want the $350 one for TV producers, I will give it to you for free. Plus you get 20% off any other media contact list that you want to buy as well. And we've got over 80 media contact lists on the site, everything from fashion to beauty to small business to cars to lots of parenting, parenting blogs, parenting website, parenting magazines, kids media, just loads and loads of different kinds. So there's over 2,600 contacts in there, and all of our journalists, as I said, have been asked if they want to hear from you, and they do. So I'm not sending you on a wild goose chase. These guys genuinely do want to hear from small businesses and startups. So that's another $300 or actually up to $350 value that you can have for free. So instead of paying the $3,735, all of that would have added up to, you can get everything we've mentioned for only $600, which I reckon is an absolute bargain. And remember, so I've gone, how can you resist? Really, how can you resist? The coupon code is BC for Bootcamp 0216 when you go to the shop. And that's the link under there. And Karina will also, I'm sure, put it up on the chat for you. And this is just what one of our past boot campers had to say. And they put it up on the Facebook page last week, and I just thought it was so gorgeous. I wanted to share it with you because she is somebody who had seen me do a talk at the Reed Gift Fair a couple of years ago. And it was very like this, so very top line. And she wanted to give it a go. So she's got a business where she sells Turkish towels. So she tried to put together her media release herself. And I think what she will say now is that she made it far too commercial, but she really just went out there saying, aren't my towels great and you should buy them, and didn't get any coverage at all. And then she's done the boot camp with me, and she's absolutely drowning in coverage at the moment. I can't believe it because the last boot camp finished on the 22nd of December or something. So she hasn't had long, and she's managed to get on all the lifestyle channels. She's been, so that's Lifestyle Channel, and Lifestyle Food, I think, or Lifestyle U. She's been in Rush magazine. She's been in a travel agents magazine. She's been in the Courier Mail, I think. She's just got loads. Anyway, this is what she said. Attending Handle Your Own PR has been the best thing I've done for my business. Jules and Karina can give you all the tools to get you started. I recommend this boot camp to anyone who wants to understand how the media works and how to get your brand out there yourself. And God love her, she's just such a beautiful woman, but she keeps on saying, you know, it's completely changed her business, and that at last she's now selling products and she's getting the coverage, and her business is absolutely booming to the extent that I think she's going to slow down her PR till she can catch up a little bit with her orders. So do come and join us. We'd love to have you as part of it. As I said, today's special price is only $600 plus GST, and there's the discount code at the checkout.
Jules, it's Karina. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm going to try and load up the video, as I think we've got a little bit of time. Your interview that you did, is that okay? Or just an experiment? Sorry, everybody, but no, I'll do it at my end, and I'll see if it works at my end. So let's just give it a go. Sorry, everyone. We haven't done this before, but I've tried to load a video up to see if it'll work. So let's give it a go.
Otherwise, I can try it here. See how you go.
Okay.
It's just an
Jules, are you still there? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know if the others can hear you.
That's all right. I just wanted to say welcome to Hannah, because I see that she's coming on the boot camp. And I saw that Kathy was asking me about Pressloft. Who was it Kathy? So Kathy, Pressloft is a slightly different model in that what you do with Pressloft is you put your media release up on their site, and journalists that are looking for products to feature, it's only for products, but journalists that are looking for products to feature will go on Pressloft to have a look. So it's not probably as proactive, and you don't get to build that relationship in the same way, but it is a great service. Or you could sign up for their call outs, which are a bit like the Source Bottle ones, and very good. So I hope that helps, but it's specific to products, lifestyle products in particular. Are there any more questions? Has anyone got any other more questions? Or I might have to go because I've got my children calling me from upstairs. Is there anyone else, Karina?
No, I don't think so. I think that
Yeah. Right, well, I'm going to say night to everyone, and I'm really hoping that you'll all come on the boot camp and I can help all of you. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing you, Hannah. And yes, you're the first one, so you get an hour of my time to talk about your business as part of it as well. And good luck, everyone. All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast. Have a good evening. Bye.